Monday, December 6th, 2021. It's a little late. Sorry about that. 7:26. Opening announcements. This meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on local cable channels and on the internet. You can connect to the meeting through Zoom, either by dialing in or on the web. If you choose to dial in, phone number is 646-558-8656. And either for dial-in or internet connection, meeting ID is 898-7032-6177 with a passcode of 52269. Let's see, so there are regional vaccination clinics. There's one tonight, which probably is wrapping up in half an hour or so. This is for ages 5 to 11. We're actually now into the second dose clinics. There's an additional one for December 13th and December 20th. It's not relevant to anybody here because we're all over 11. But for the people, anybody who might be watching this at home or see it online, there are, but these are second doses. So if your child hasn't already had the first dose, this clinic doesn't fit for you. There will quite possibly be booster clinics scheduled as well by the Merrimack Valley Consortium, also to be held here at the Annex, and we'll know more about that once the Board of Health figures out the details and works with the town in figuring out all the logistics for that. Works with the town finance and town manager to figure out the logistics. There is also help available through the Senior Center or the Board of Health for seniors who are trying to figure out how to go about getting their COVID booster. Again, it's possible that will be one solution. That will be through a clinic here in the Annex sometime in the upcoming weeks. But so if there is a senior who needs help figuring out how to get boosted, they'll reach out to the Senior Center or to the Board of Health. We're going to have a holiday tree lighting in Carroll's this Thursday, December 9th. It was originally scheduled for last Thursday, December 2nd, but for a variety of reasons had to be postponed. So it's this Thursday, December 9th, 6:30 p.m. at the training field. Everybody's welcome. And I think there's hot chocolate and cookies. Our Council on Aging Director, Teresa Woodbury, after 16 years of service to the town, is leaving, and that's sad. She's been a real asset to the town and to the seniors in particular for a long time. Obviously, there's going to be a big set of shoes to fill. Actually, I don't know how big her feet are, but she's done a really good job and will be missed. And I guess we should all say thanks to her for that. As always, there are plenty of positions, volunteer positions on various boards, commissions, and committees. You can go online to the town website, www.newbury.org/volunteer to see what's available. I think last time I read it out, I was shocked actually how many different positions there were. There are probably 15 different boards or committees or commissions that have openings right now. The volunteerism to operate town government is part of the lifeblood of government. So it's really important that people are willing to put in the effort. That's what keeps the town, or that's part of what keeps the town going. There's a call out to boards, commissions, and committees and all town departments for FY21 town reports. The town clerk's office is beginning to work on the FY21 town report. And Jim, what's your goal, your target for having reports?
I believe it was the 16th,
Of
the
January?
latest. Yeah,
January 6th.
6th. Thank you.
Okay, so we have essentially a month from today, and for boards, commissions, committees, and town departments already know. I know the town manager has already met with town departments, or I believe he's already met with town departments, and about that and other topics. So they're already in the know. But it's the first notice to boards, commissions, and committees. Anybody can subscribe for email town news and announcements at www.westnewbury or wnewbury.org/subscribe. Back on Halloween, there was a fun event, a Trail of Terror event, hosted by the Pentucket Arts Foundation. It was at Maple Crest Farm, where they have Christmas trees and strawberries and blueberries in season, which it is right now. And John Elwell, who owns Maple Crest, wrote a great letter, basically commending the police and firefighters who were so supportive of that event in terms of providing the safety, making sure traffic was kept under control, making sure that everybody was safe, so wanted to just give thanks to Mike Dwyer, Jessica Ang, Matt Dixon, George Lanat of the police department, and Mike Dwyer gets double billing here because he's also with the fire department as the fire chief. Mike Dwyer, Ben Janelle, Duncan Weaver, and Andrea Ball, all from the fire department. So that was really good. It was a big, significant fundraiser for Pentucket Fine Arts Foundation, and it was really important that they have the support from our public safety volunteers, or from those who were able to volunteer for the public safety departments. So I'm noticing here a price increase from Comcast. Anybody's price. And I'm not sure exactly what I'm supposed to do with this, other than acknowledge that those of us who subscribe to Comcast are going to see some price increases. I guess that is, it's a contractual agreement with the town, so that's why it's part of this package. So we recently, at a town meeting, at a special town meeting, approved for the town to go ahead with forming an affordable housing trust. And in the organizational process, we needed this affordable housing trust bylaw committee in order to write up the rules by which the trust is going to operate. And there was a call for volunteers. I guess I'm taking the volunteer offering. That's my mistake, but I'll go with the flow. So we have a number of people who have offered to volunteer on that committee. In fact, this is a real wealth of names here, and in the general process, we don't typically have more people than we need to fill all the slots of the committee. The bylaw committee will be 5 people. I think that was what we agreed on. Okay.
Yeah, and there was specific.
Yeah, I saw that there was
I think it, Rick, just explained that this will be not the actual committee, but
just
a
a
committee
bylaw.
to create the bylaw for the ultimate committee. I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah, okay. Sorry if I wasn't clear enough for that. So yeah, so this is a fairly short-lived process. The target term of office is December, well, we're already past December 1st, but essentially from tonight through April 30th, 2022, at which point, hopefully we'll have the bylaws already determined and agreed upon. The term can be extended if need be, but the target is to get it done by the end of April. The composition of the committee will be one representative from the select board, one representative from the planning board, one representative with a financial background or experience, somebody with a legal background or experience, and one at-large representative from the community with an interest in affordable housing. We have, there were people who have actually 8 people who indicated interest in would effectively come down to 3 positions, because I don't think anybody who is on here was from the planning board, and I know that the 3 select board members are sitting here. So,
Well, Deb Hamilton.
oh, that's right, you were on the planning board, not that. Okay, I'm sorry. So, I'm sorry, say again?
I'm an associate member, but they asked that when I offered to serve, they.
They said, okay, great, okay, good. Okay, so that makes that easy. So we have 3 positions, somebody with a financial background, somebody with a legal background, and an at-large member, and 7 people to pick from. I know somebody with a financial background who has expressed interest is Anna O'Sullivan. I'm not sure who else here has a financial background. Yeah, could you just sort of speak up, I guess, for yourself, please, Ann?
Sure.
Most of us know who you are.
That would disqualify me. Ann O'Sullivan, 56 Ash Street, West Newbury. I've offered to serve on this bylaw committee, particularly because I think it is a fairly straightforward process. I believe this is not the first community that has adopted the bylaw process, and I have some experience with clients who have worked toward this same bylaw process. So I think I can bring some value in terms of connections to Andover and other communities, how they went through the process of bylaws, as well as my financial background and my, I don't know if it works for or against me, my history on the select board and the community preservation committee. So on the other hand, I'm sure you noted in my application, I mentioned that I thought it would be really important for your group to identify new individuals in this town who are willing to step forward. We need some fresh ideas in this town. So if there's anybody else that can step forward and fill those shoes, I'm happy to step aside. So
Okay, great. Yeah, and I picked on you because I knew specifically you had a financial background, but I also did read your suggestion that we should be looking for new blood.
for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
right.
So, thank you.
So of the other folks who aren't, the other people are Richard Baker, Kevin Bowe, Doreen Crowley, Deb Hamilton, Deb, we know you're on the planning board. Lisa, is it Lisa or Lisa?
Lisa.
Lisa, okay, sorry, thanks. Lisa Mingo, Pam Schaefer, and Lee Stecker.
Also, Patricia Reeser's application's in here.
Oh, but she's not on the list, okay, sorry, Patricia.
Yeah.
But I knew you were sitting there. So is there anybody else who, would sort of classify themselves as having a financial background?
There was one person that was an estimator and I wasn't sure. It sounds like it's building and construction. so
Okay,
it's
the
not
construction,
necessarily-
right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I work as a construction estimator. Hi, Dorian Crowley.
Hi.
I've been a site work estimator, building estimator for a number of years. I'm currently employed by Suffolk Construction in Boston. And I live in the town. I would love to be, participate, the importance of, affordable housing. And I thought my insight as far as like cost related or, where the community would be developed would be helpful to the team. So, I'm not
Okay.
very good at speaking in public.
You're doing
Right.
fine.
So that's, if anyway, I'd like to volunteer my time.
Okay, that's great, good. And yeah, I really appreciate, because obviously, you're a generation younger than most of us are. And that's important, it's so important, really appreciate your,
Yeah.
showing interest.
But I did think that my experience, and like I started out in site work, understand, location could be helpful. And
Yeah.
how it could impact the wetlands, the community, could be helpful, as well as cost as you're going through the process.
Yeah,
So,
great, okay.
thank you.
So,
Good, thank
so
you.
it's possible that even beyond this bylaw, maybe when the trust is actually established, you
Yeah,
might-
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually possible that your specific skill set and knowledge set may be more valuable for the ultimate trust.
Mhm.
And because the trust is gonna be the organization or the group that eventually tries to figure out how are we gonna implement, how are we gonna actually produce some affordable housing to support what we currently
So
have.
that made more sense.
Yeah.
So, I'm here.
Great,
Thank you.
okay. Thanks. Okay, and then a representative with a legal background or experience, and the only person I know here who has a legal background or who has thrown their hat in the ring is Patricia Reeser. And I guess Patricia, you'd like to speak up, sure, if you don't mind.
Yes, as many of you may remember, I advocated for affordable housing, way back when we looked at it back in 2002, 2004. Time period when we looked at developing housing initiatives to develop our own affordable housing development. And I've been pretty interested in seeing the town take the initiative to do something, so I'm really glad that we've gotten to this phase where we're looking at establishing a housing trust. So I think that's terrific, and thank you for doing it. And I also have to say that, I do have a legal background. I'm retired now, but I practiced for 40 years. So I can draft, and I can certainly sift through bylaws from other towns. But I want to reiterate what Ann said, and if there's somebody else with a legal background who's interested in doing this, that's from a different demographic than I am, then, I urge you guys to want that person. It's for all the obvious reasons.
Yeah,
Thanks.
great, thanks. Okay, so, other people who are here, Rich Baker, Rick, Kevin Bowe is here.
Yeah, he
Oh,
is.
they're just here, back there, okay, so here, okay. Maybe if each of you would, could give a quick snapshot of why you think you're the right person to be on the committee. If you don't mind, I don't mean to put people on the spot, but we somehow make a decision, we're in the unusual circumstance of having more people than we have need.
Who starts?
Yeah, Rich, if you would, the way things are listed here, you were in line.
All right,
alphabetical.
I mean, I can help check a couple of boxes, but I'd be your number two. Kathleen is better drafter at being an attorney. I draft patent applications and do a lot with patent law. And I've done, I'm on the bylaws committee, the state Republican committee. So I've done bylaws, but I'm not a lawyer. I just go toe to toe with lawyers, and Pat would probably be a much more qualified person than I. I can do the finance on valuations and with all my work on the Board of Assessors, I monitor your real estate transactions, every real estate transaction that goes through the town. I'm watching where prices are, and we have to be on the Board of Assessors. So, but I was actually much more interested in being on the committee itself than the bylaws committee. But if the town needs help, I'd be willing to serve there. But again, if somebody else wants to take it, I'm happy as well.
Okay, great, thanks, Rick. Kevin, you're next alphabetically.
Yep. I'm grateful for that. Well, first, I think it's just a great sign that you get so much enthusiasm for this effort. So that's certainly great. And I echo Rich's sentiment. I'm interested in being involved in this issue, whether it's this particular bylaw committee or not. I bring, I bring a whole host of experience from both private industry, working for Congress, now working for the state government, to understand really complicated, lots of moving pieces. I don't have, again, and I think Patricia and Ann would be wonderful additions, but it's incidental. I think one's a CPA and one's an attorney, and I think if I could comment just on the bylaw committee itself, I think that it's important that they word things in a broad, flexible way, and not ironically, limit it to some with, even though with the best intentions of their using words like legal experience or financial experience, where it really then limits a lot of creativity and a lot of people that can deal with problem solving. I certainly, working with legislation, have dealt with a lot of legalese and understand it, and contracts, dealing with lawyers and corporate environment. So, I'm very, very comfortable with that. And again, I think my resume will demonstrate, being able to work in complicated public environments. And I do have 2 weeks of vacation time in January, February. That I just in terms of this short deadline.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of interest in, I want to be in this in the long term, whether it's this committee, the trust fund, or frankly both. So let's keep the enthusiasm and interest going.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Doreen Crowley.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, Doreen. Lisa Mingo.
Hi.
Hi.
I was very interested in this move mainly because I'm chairman of the housing authority and the board, and I feel like we have the same goals and missions. Different management for this as opposed to the housing authority, but this brings it closer to and much more personal just to West Newbury, whereas housing authority needs are filled by more or less the county, and people would just, it's not specific to just West Newbury residents, whereas I was interested in maybe that this would be. And I'm interested in this population and taking care. So member at large would be the decision I'd be interested in.
Okay, and when you say you're interested in this population, you mean specifically seniors?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
And people who need the affordable housing most, yeah,
right, okay,
which is kind of the same.
Yeah.
right,
Generally, yeah.
okay, great, thanks, Liz.
Thanks.
Pamela Schaefer.
She's out of town. I think she's out of town.
Okay,
Elizabeth watching.
okay, thanks. And Lee Snecker. Hi, Lee.
Do you guys mind if I talk to you from back here?
No, that's fine.
Just pull down my map
Yeah.
for a minute.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm also interested in the at-large position because I have no particular expertise at all whatsoever. But I have always been interested in land use here in town. And like Patricia, I was really disappointed that the town did not pursue affordable housing the last time we went through this, and there was a really excellent proposal that I was so sorry that we didn't vote for. But anyway, so I think it's so important to have affordable housing in our town for a variety of reasons, and that's why I'm here. No particular expertise beyond the interest. I'm a good writer. I can help with that kind of thing. I've worked with Patricia before. I've worked with Anne, and so I also would like to see young people come stepping forward. So I would step back if there were more young people, but I just wanted to express my interest generally in the ultimate committee and in this committee.
Great. Richie or Wendy, do you have any thoughts? Any?
Yeah.
Let's discuss for a second the time constraints and just the nuts and bolts of people being able to work on this.
Yeah.
I think Jim had.
There's actually one other person.
Oh, okay.
Item D, Mary Joyce Acosta. She's interested in both Council on Aging and Affordable Housing
Oh,
Trust.
okay. That's-
I don't know if she's on or here.
I am here.
Yeah.
But I think I think we decided to more go with for Council of Aging, because there seemed to be more of a need, and that was okay with me. If there was more of a need for that committee, that's fine with me.
Great. Thanks, Mary.
Does that work for, I do have experience with that as well. So if that's when there's more of a need, I'm fine with that. And I'd like to also bring my experience there. So that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, so Mary, regarding the Council on Aging, I know I'm sort of jumping right here, but thanks, Jim, for pointing out that I had forgotten. I noticed that earlier when I read this. Your interest or experience relative to Council on Aging, seeing as you're talking already, we might as well hear your thoughts.
So for my thoughts on Council on Aging?
Yeah.
So I've been in the human services field for over 18 years, more with developmental disabilities, but I've worked collaboratively with elder programs with Greater Lynn Mental Health Service and PACE Community. So just to bring ideas on different programs or services or ideas that I could bring fresh thoughts to the table. So anything like that, I would love to bring new ideas to.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Sure.
We'll be back to you in a minute.
Okay.
Or in a few minutes. So Angus, correct me if I was wrong. We actually will have support for the bylaw committee from a consultant, and I can't recall the consultant's name.
That's right. Yeah. So just a little background. First of all, obviously the town planner, Leah, and I are both, really happy to help. We're both very enthusiastic about this initiative. And, but we also both have, a lot of other work too. So we're not, our time's going to be limited, but we're totally supportive and really excited to see the town going in this direction. We think it's great. But what we did last spring, we had back in March, we'd done an RFP process to engage a vendor to help with the local action units, which are the 13 existing affordable units we have, not including the housing authority, which, as Lisa said, is kind of a different thing. We engaged one vendor, but the second vendor was really, really appealing to us. But we went with the first one because she was a better fit for that monitoring process. But the other vendor is a woman named Elizabeth Rust. She's based in Concord, Mass, and does a lot of work with housing trusts in the Metro West area. So when, and in fact, the first vendor we hired who does the monitoring wasn't really interested in that. So Leah and I reached out to Liz. We've had a couple of Zoom meetings with her over the last 4 to 6 weeks, keeping her apprised of our, the proposal, and then when it was approved, and now with the bylaw committee. Anyway, long story short, too late. We signed an agreement with Liz last week. So she is under contract to support the town with setting up a trust. It's a kind of a very open-ended scope. So she's going to be available to the committee, available to the chair. He did say her availability for evening meetings is limited because she has a number of other contracts with those commitments. But once this committee is up and running, first thing I'm going to do is give the new chair and, and really the whole committee here's her contact info. She's happy to, and obviously Lee and I are going to work with her too. But anyhow, so she's got a lot of expertise, including on housing trusts, on work they can do and have done in other small communities. So I think it's going to be a real asset to the committee and eventually to the trust as well.
Great, thanks. So,
Question.
Yeah, Kevin.
I was just wondering, how many people going down the road do you see on the housing trust? And is there already a mechanism that defines that, or is this what the zoning, this committee will be recommending for, not just zoning potential changes, but also the nature of the committee?
Well, so I don't think that the bylaw committee is going to be looking at zoning changes. The bylaw committee will be kind of setting up the rules of
The trust.
of the trust.
Right, okay.
Thank God. And how many, as far as how many people, I thought that was where you were going.
Yeah.
7 to 9 typically, but so there's a bylaw or regulations already. And so we could either adopt that or we could revise them, so.
Which is what this committee would do.
Right.
Okay, great.
Right. The only reason I thought that the default was 5, but it could be up to 9 or something. No?
I think 7 is the
Yeah.
default, or
Okay.
that's what I heard.
Okay, okay.
You guys like 7 and I like 5.
That was kind of what I remember, but I was kind of around. Okay, I would, does anybody want to make a motion?
I just wanted to say that first, since I put my name in to run for select board, Lee Stecker has been asking about affordable housing, and it's something that she's been passionately interested in and probably monthly check in about it, so.
Okay.
I think I would be in favor of appointing her to the bylaw committee.
Okay. As the at large. Archie, do you have any?
No, I just wanted to, let's see what so that people are not making a commitment that they might be overwhelmed by. So what would we be thinking in terms of how many meetings would there be and all that kind of stuff? It sounds trivial, but it's not.
That's a good point. Yeah, and what time of day, what day of the week, kind of things. I mean, the day of the week, we're not going to decide here and now, but in general terms, time of day. You heard what Angus said about Liz Frost's availability, the consultant's availability for night meetings is limited, but she doesn't necessarily have to be at all night meetings. She might be consulted more by the chair of the committee or be in conversation with Angus and Leah. But say who would be available if there were daytime meetings, who would be available for daytime meetings?
This is what's nice about working bold people.
And night meetings, everybody. Doreen, you work a regular job, which is a great thing. And you work down in Boston. And our nighttime meetings, pretty easy, you know, say if there were, you know, if there was a nighttime meeting every other week at 7 o'clock on some mutually agreed upon night, that would probably work for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody who would have, you know, I guess what I'm trying to do is sort of, because we have more people than we need, I'm trying to figure out if there's an easy way to figure out who might not be able to, do it. But it doesn't sound like anybody's gonna have a problem in general with. Yes, Kevin.
I think you've got a wealth of talent. I definitely want to be involved in the trust fund, but I'm away 2 weeks and
Okay.
I'll remove my
Okay.
name from
Okay.
consideration.
See, just.
But do not prejudice it for housing trust.
You just deselected yourself without prejudice.
I can tell how uncomfortable you guys are. Come on, I'll come up. Self-select, guys.
Would it be easier for you if we wrap?
If we can make it easy for you.
Yeah, we're interested in the general,
And
and
Okay.
trust.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna make a motion for everything but the select board. And you guys can either agree with me or come up with an alternate plan. But I would move Deb Hamilton for the planning board representative. And I think this is not quite fully within your wheelhouse, Doreen, but I'd like, because you don't have as specific a financial background, but I'm not so sure that at this point that it needs to be as specific, so I would move forward Doreen Crowley to be the person representing the financial background. And Brad Large, Lee Stecker. And for the only lawyer in the room. Is that okay? Patricia? Yeah, so Patricia Reeser, okay. So it's fun, people are, so that's 4 out of the 5 positions, and then a member for the select board. I'm gonna deselect myself from that.
Could we ask, something?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm happy to do it, something I'm really interested in.
I feel like.
Fine, I'm good with all
Okay.
Could we consider appointing Anna Sullivan as a consultant to the bylaw committee or requesting her assistance?
I think that'd be great. I know Ann has been, if you're up with that, Ann.
You know, I'm perfectly happy to do that. I
Yeah.
was planning on being involved,
Right.
whether it's a formal committee appointment or not, I
Okay.
still will be actively involved. So
That'd be
we're
great.
on that.
Okay, that was a good suggestion, Wendy. Right. Yeah, because, I mean, Ann, I can't think of anybody who's been more active. Than you have. Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So, yeah, so that was my motion. Okay, so I'll go through the names again. Wendy Reed, Deb Hamilton, Doreen Crowley, Tricia Reeser, and Lee Stecker. Sorry, for a second. Any discussion?
Second.
Yeah, okay, now any discussion, yeah, okay, any discussion? All in
Other
favor?
than, thank you all for applying. It's
Yeah,
really-
absolutely.
Really engaging.
Yeah, that's
tremendous.
phenomenal, that's good.
Great, okay. All in favor, aye. Great, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. There you go.
Thanks to the people who offered and step back.
And so one of the early things in this is a public hearing, so I would really encourage you to come and participate in that. Okay. You want to be.
Thank you.
Great. Oh, boy, I'm sorry. Wait, thanks.
So much.
Okay, yeah, so I'm gonna just take a step back, then I missed, the second item on our list was request for waiver of waiting period for a Sydney Lathrop as a part-time dispatcher. And Mike, you're here for that?
Yeah, the chief asked me to
Okay, great.
step in, in case you have any questions about her.
Was there a situation, has she moved here yet or not yet? Or
She's in the process of moving back. It looks like February 2022 is the timeframe.
Okay, so she's not starting until then.
No, and as far as her training is concerned, there's only a few things she would need to get updated on that apply to what we specifically do at West Newbury.
Okay,
So was she on the dispatch prior?
She was, yeah,
Okay,
and she got
so there's a-
married, had some children and left.
Yeah.
To go to Maine, but now they're looking to come back to the area.
So these are just updated trainings or requirements from what
Yes.
she was experiencing?
State 911 training.
I was hoping she was gonna be here. I wanted to ask her if she knew a friend of mine, who lives in Buxton. We haven't seen her 20 years, but
no, she's great. I worked with her. She was on my shift. It's quite awesome. So she's very professional. Knows the community, knows the area really well. So
well, she's a dispatch supervisor in Buxton, it says, right?
Yeah.
And Buxton is probably, it's more rural than West Newbury, but it's probably somewhere around the same population, I'm guessing. So it's a similar character, yeah. Yeah.
that's all I have.
Okay, all right, well, you know, I would move to waive the 15-day waiting period for Sydney Lathrop as a part-time dispatcher. So,
And so when is their start date, or is that not known?
Defer to Angus on that. I know he probably has that answer.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't have that answer. I do know, yeah, Chief Durand reached out to me about 2 weeks ago, and the tenor of it was kind of how soon can we get this done? So, but I do know she's got to get some training. So I don't know if it's February or before that, but I do know it was, you know, he was eager to get it formalized. But I don't.
Effective with the term ending June 30th.
right, yeah, so it'd be effective immediately with the term ending June 30th, 2022.
Yeah, yep.
With everybody, and then she would need to just be reappointed for the next fiscal year. Great. Second?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Great, thanks, Mike. Thank you. Okay, so, sorry about that. We got kind of out of order there, or I got out of order. Mary, seeing as you already spoke up, I would move to appoint Mary Joyce Acosta to the Council on Aging.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
Not a problem.
Okay, and great. So we have two more appointments. We have Kelly Scott for Tree Committee. Hi, Kelly. How you doing? Great.
I need to come down.
How are you doing? I recall you were very outspoken and passionate in your and what you had to say back around the time of the fortunately failed 40B.
The Common Street, yes.
Right.
Yeah, so we kind of sad that Mike left, so we grew up as neighbors, and we moved here, I turned 10 in the house in Common Street. After my father passed, my husband and I bought the house. But I grew up riding Pony Club from Common Street to what is now River Bend, all the way to the Apple Orchard and beyond, and then every tree and trail in between, including the pond and all of that. I remember very distinctly Mike's grandfather telling the story about the hurricane of '38 and trees planted along Coffin Street that were blowing down, and he and his teenage friends
were standing on the rooftops trying to save the trees. And I just remember vividly being like, that's what we would do, right? Because that's why we live here. It's so beautiful. I'm a teacher, I'm a science teacher, spend most of my time outside or educating people. I also am 6th generation New Englander, so wood stoves and cutting this wood has been a part of my childhood forever. The idea of understanding the different trees and what they bring to an ecosystem in the lens of trying to prepare our town for climate change and resiliency, I think is a huge thing. I would love to see the tree committee coupling with conservation and the affordable housing and anything that's gonna help us to, if there's new landscaping going in, we can at least consult. Yeah, so anyway, I'm a little bit passionate about this degree, saving and protecting what's so beautiful and bringing back maybe what we've lost.
Great. Nice, thanks.
Yeah, Wendy and Rick and Archie, the tree committee voted unanimously to recommend to you guys that you appoint Kelly to our committee.
Thanks, Fred. Well, all this being the case, I move that we appoint Kelly Scott to tree committee. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Fred. Thank you, Fred. And we have another appointment, volunteer Robert Belmont for Historical Commission. And is Robert Belmont online by any chance? There's a phone number I don't recognize, but Bob is a member of Historical Commission. Were you here to speak for Robert Belmont by any chance?
Yeah, and other things, but yeah.
Okay.
I don't know Mr. Belmont all that well, but I've had occasion to meet and talk to his brother from Arizona, and his nephew used to work at the food mart, so I kind of know the family a little bit. So
Yeah.
I think he'd be a very good thing to do.
Okay. Okay.
How many people are on the historical committee?
At the moment,
Four, okay.
But there's like it's like authorized for like 50 or something. I mean, is there a huge number authorized? Maybe not, that was an exaggeration, but I think there were a lot, if I remember right, there were a ton of members authorized.
It could be.
Yeah.
Right now, there's four of us.
Okay, so this will happen the 5th, will then make it that there'll never be a two-two
Jim,
vote.
can you tell?
I'll look it up right now. That's just the historical commission, not the historical district commission. Right. So Mr. James, Lisa, Dot, and Jennifer are currently on the commission.
Oh, does it say how many are authorized to be on there? That's okay, we don't, I guess.
It just says 5 spots on here, but I don't know if
Yeah.
that means that's only 5.
Okay, all right. Well, I move to appoint Robert Belmont to the historical commission. All in favor?
Appointment to what?
Oh, yeah, thanks, Archie. So effective immediately and until, that's right, when, 5th position, are those 3-year positions on the
Yeah,
commission?
so this one will be till 2023.
Okay, till June 30th, 2023. Thanks.
And also provided that we're not, you know, that there isn't an open slot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, Jim saw that there was a 5th slot available, and it would always be an odd number.
It's gotta be.
Right, yeah.
I think it is. I think the composition is 5.
Really?
I think, Rick, you might be thinking of Cultural Council, which has up to 22. Cultural Council.
Okay.
Council's on bigger than the
It's a commission, technically.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Does you go by Robert or Bob?
I honestly don't know. I'm really,
Okay,
I've had it once or twice, but it was
yeah,
in the process.
well, you'll be finding out.
We'll find it.
Great, okay, thank you. All right, we have 2 liquor license renewal applications for the West Newbury Pizza Company and West Newbury Food Mart.
Are these annuals?
Yeah, these are.
Yes.
Yeah. Does anybody have any particular questions about it?
Well, Jim, what is involved and are there certain requirements that have to be? I just haven't experienced.
Yeah, so this is, they have to be in good standing. They have to essentially be following the rules. There's no violations. You guys are the licensing board, technically. So if there were violations, they would have had to come before you to answer for them.
And
But
who would identify violations?
probably inspectional services, or if there was a report, or police, if there was a report to the ABCC, things like that. But we only have 2, so it's not very difficult.
And they provide a vital service.
And it's only, just so you know, it's all kinds of alcoholic beverages for the food mart. And it's just wines and malt beverages for pizza.
Yeah, so you sort of have to do.
Yeah.
One at a time, okay, okay. You want me to- Okay, all right. I would,
I get it now.
Okay.
I make a motion to, approve the retail license renewal for the West Newbury Pizza Company. License category wines and malt with, an expiration date of, I'm looking on
License expiration December 31st, 2022.
okay. That doesn't say it on the thing. That's not here. Okay.
Both of the same date.
okay.
December
What was that
31st.
date again?
December 31st, 2022,
Okay, all right.
because this is the 2022 license.
Okay, great. And I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Make a motion to approve the retail license renewal for the West Newbury Food Mart with an expiration date of 12/31/2022. License type package store, license category, all alcoholic beverages.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So before you guys leave, I need to make sure you guys sign these.
Okay.
And then we have a couple reports we have to send to the ABCC as well, just on population and things like that.
Okay.
So is there a fee associated with the license
Yes,
to the town? or
yes,
just-
to the town. Yep.
Okay. So next we have a consideration of proposal to remove or replace 2 interpretive signs regarding Native Americans at Indianville and Garden Street and on Turkey Hill Road. So we talked about this 5 weeks ago tonight, and, you know, we didn't, there was no action taken at that point, and I know, you know, I've heard some negative comment on us taking no action at that point. And I just want to say, speaking for myself at least, I think it's pretty clear that these need to be removed, but given that they've been there for over 80 years, I thought that waiting a little longer just to see what comments, if any, might come out, was worth doing. And there were actually a couple of letters received and, you know, in support of removal of the signs. You know, one of them, actually 2 letters written by Mickey Culver, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but you know, it was sort of brought back fond memories of Mickey's thought process and the way he expressed himself very poignantly. And So I'm just gonna make a motion and then we can talk about it. I move that we have the two interpretive signs, which mention Native Americans, referred to as Indians, at locations at Indian Hill and Garden Street and on Perky Hill Road, that they be removed from the town right of way. And at some point in the future, my understanding is that the Historical Commission will come back with a proposal for some other signs. I think they, based on the conversation I had with Mr. Grammer, you're targeting sometime in March to have something to follow up with.
That's correct.
Yeah, so anyway, my motion was to remove the signs. Does anybody have?
I just wanted, one of the reasons that we didn't take action last time is we want to allow the historical commission to go through their process. So, no, Bob, if you could just update us on the discussion.
Yeah. Just that these 5 people were part of this, and we did determine that the signs be removed. And an appropriate sign for both locations put up in the spring. And for my own personal opinion, at this point, all I want to say about the Turkey Hill sign is that whatever is placed there in the future references the 8 individuals that died in that room. Point fingers, who did this, did what, but I think the Brown family needs to be remembered, along with everything else. That's my own personal.
So Bob, did the committee take an official, the memo we have from Angus says that it was the historical commission discussed the matter. What just did they actually
There was a vote.
Did you and the committee vote on things or just talk about it?
No, we voted on it. We voted to remove it.
Okay. That's what I wanted to find out, yeah. I have always found the wording of especially the sign that's quite near my house and it was, I always found the wording of the sign actually bizarre. But as I said at our previous meeting, I don't want the select board to be going around changing signs and stuff with that. I think that's what the job of every committee and commission has their task, and we can't be. That's why we have them, so that they give us advice on what we think we should do. So that's what I just wanted to see whether the historical commission really felt that it was necessary to do that.
Yeah, and it would seem important to me that any new signage, whatever new signage there is, try to somehow explain a little bit about context. If there is something described that the context of it, I mean, I don't know how you do it in 1,000 words.
Something about this,
right. But the context is important.
The history involved is in depth, and to shrink what actually happens into something about like this it's going to be a little tricky, but it's not going to do anybody justice.
Well, wasn't there discussion about maybe putting a QR code on the sign? Is that too?
Is that possible? Yeah.
I mean, that's what they did on the cemetery up in.
Yeah, I mean, the committee's going to, these folks are going to come up with the wording and stuff like that. But we could certainly put a QR code on there that will bring you to, the history. And that history dates back to 1500, so there's quite a bit of it in there. So, like I said, there were no winners and no losers.
They had QR codes in that.
Yeah, it just had trouble scanning with the smartphone. Okay.
If we remember that, I got one more thing I'd like to bring up, if possible.
We should vote, right?
Yeah, we should vote, yeah. So, all in favor?
Oh, okay.
Aye.
Aye.
It's not on the agenda, but this guy over here has given the historic commission and the town a, what is it, 150-year-old map of the area that was owned by Bob Lovejoy. And she's been gracious enough to give it to us, which we want to give to the town. And our thought was we put it on the wall right outside this, because it's big, it's like 60 by 60 or something like that. It's a pretty good size, or a map. And we kind of figured that right outside this door on the wall where the Roxbury Bridge is, would be a perfect spot for it. And we can move the Roxbury Bridge over to maybe the other side between the ladies' room and the other wall or something, somewhere over there where there isn't, should.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm sure, I mean, we can, your suggestion where to put it may be the right, but that's, I don't think we'll make that decision right now as far as where to put it.
No, we thought that would be the best spot.
Yeah, okay.
But at least we wanted to be aware of it.
Right, okay, good.
We have it,
And that'll probably need to be put in a frame with
So do you want to see the picture?
Sure.
I think to have.
Is it in something that's protecting it now, or?
So, debatable. I didn't know that was coming up tonight, so thank you.
Well, it wasn't on the agenda, but I think as long as we're here, do it. And
So it's a really,
Is it a one?
No, there's one of these two are-
Oh, yeah.
They were made to be older adults, and many of them were down on this.
West Newbury is on here, I think. Let's see.
Yeah, sorry.
So is there glass over it?
There is not, that's not actually.
Yeah, there's
what
West
they
Newbury right
recommend
there.
us to
But
do.
it's all that's kind of the West Newbury.
It's Essex County.
Yeah.
It's a famous map maker. There's all kinds of details. For me, it's bubbled, I loved it. And I just didn't want it to go by the wayside. I wanted to give it back to the town.
Great, thank you.
Don't forget your phone.
Nice guy.
Thank you. It's because it's so big, is why we lived everywhere. Like, it's 61 by 61.
Okay. Great, hey.
Can I ask a quick procedural question?
Sure.
First of all, thank you for the vote. That's great. Thanks for the support. We had a great meeting with the Historical Commission recently, and then we're going to continue, as Bob was saying, working together to sort of figure out what an appropriate and balanced kind of
And short.
sign of these in the next few months. The procedural question, I'm just a little unclear as to, we'll be working with the Historical Commission and coming up with something that there's a general consensus on. Does it then come back to the select board in the spring, or are you deputizing the Historical Commission to essentially say, okay, we figured out the sign, now we'll get it fabricated and installed? I'm just a little unclear sort of whose authority is, where does it lie?
To install the new sign?
Or do you want?
To approve the wording.
I mean, I was interested in Mickey's letters, and it said that the board of selectmen at that time had approved the wording. so-
Yeah, well, I think because, as road commissioners, we're responsible for anything within the town right of way. So, we should see the wording and,
So once we've sorted through our process.
presumably with the number of people looking at it, that it's gonna be, appropriate and responsive to reality.
Sounds good, okay.
But wouldn't we take it on the recommendation of the historic commission? the wording?
We probably will, but I think we have to look at it. I mean, that's our responsibility
Right,
to do
that's what I
that.
mean.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it would come from them to us.
Oh, yeah, correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
One other quick question is that the historical commission members were talking about how each sign costs $200. Is there an actual budget available for something like this, or?
Well,
We have
DPW would cover that, everything.
Okay,
Well, the installation, but what about making the sign? Wouldn't that come from the historic commission budget?
You know, what budget does, I don't recall what budget that's.
we have, I think, $600 in the budget,
Yeah, okay,
and the sign generally goes about 300.
yeah, okay, so, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, but how much do you always spend your whole budget?
I don't know what's in the budget
Yeah,
at this point, I haven't had it right down.
I think that's a detail we can work out, it's, one way or another, it'll happen, there's, the town can afford that, so we'll just figure out.
There's always CPA.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
For whatever it's worth, if something that small, we probably don't want to trouble the CPA with.
No, no, you don't.
But pretty joking. Oh, okay. I was afraid you were serious.
It's my word.
Exactly, you could put $3,000 worth of effort in for $300.
Thank you all, and this gesture of appreciation, I want to give you a land acknowledgement sign
Oh,
that you are free to display here at the town hall. Talks about being on Indigenous land, and some resources for you as well,
okay,
for land acknowledgement, everything that we're discussing.
okay.
So thank you very much. Thanks. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a new word. Hey, Harrison. That's on Main Street, Newbury. Have you ever seen this, Wendy?
Not sure.
Yes, I can.
That's on Main Street, so that's not our problem.
Yeah.
And it's actually by you.
There's also like the Hannah Dustin statue. They've been talking about that in Haverhill for.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The Hannah Dustin statue in Haverhill. They've been talking about that since I started working for Haverhill.
That's the woman who supposedly killed several
Yeah.
Native
So
Americans somewhere up
in New
farther
Hampshire.
up in Merrimack.
Yeah.
What's now.
Well, it's the phrase is like pursued by savages or something
Right,
like that. So
Okay, discussion of the proposed work scope budget from Lynn Spencer and so. Yeah.
I think we put this out.
Yeah.
yeah, that was Angus had me print that out.
So Angus, I think you've been over this and you did some editing, working with Lynn, correct?
That's right, yes. Yeah, I mean, it was mostly, real minor housekeeping stuff. The two kind of substantive changes I made to what she had proposed. One was just to make sure that if on the issue of sanitary disposal, that if it does start to go in the direction of a leaching field as opposed to the tight tank, which has been the assumption or, kind of the design for the last year and a half or two, that be basically upon the board's direction that you want to go in that direction, or you want her research to go in that direction of the potential adjacent leaching field on adjacent property. The second, which is I think even much more substantive, is I wanted to make sure the issue of zoning is kind of front and center. That's not Lynn's expertise, but I think that if any reuse scenario involving transfer or long-term lease to a private party is predicated on either a change in zoning or zoning relief through the ZBA, that we should try to identify that as soon as we can in the process. And so I think that's going to be more KP than Lynn, but I just wanted to make sure there was kind of like a clear acknowledgement And I think that with the revised language that you have in front of you, I think it captures that. But we don't want to be caught surprised by that. And I also know, you know, in talking to, you know, residents that issue of potential zoning change is one that would draw some attention.
Yeah, the letter from Sam was interesting, you know, Sam Jocelyn, particularly the note about zoning, anything non-conforming with the underlying zoning essentially no longer becomes valid after 2 years of non-use for that purpose, which I think says that, I mean, we're not going to get into that here tonight, but I think that says that the current, whatever we consider the current use to be, if it's not within the underlying zoning, no longer doable. Yeah. It's complicated.
Yeah, really.
So Angus, how has this worked in the past? I mean, there's just an hourly rate here. Is there like an estimate of the number of hours that would be required, or do you just review it monthly?
Well, you know, she's put in basically, you know, it's comes up as basically a not to exceed amount, the $9,800.
Yeah.
And I think that would be very important for, you know, if we were to go in this direction, there would be a letter agreement that we would put together that would, you know, stipulate that it would be to exceed X amount. We would need to know that for sure prior to committing funds, and certainly any CPC funds.
I did raise this at the CPC meeting
Yeah.
last time, and
Yeah.
everybody was in favor of doing it. So,
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Using the administrative funds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there were no numbers discussed, but, you know, they're in favor of the concepts as long as it was adequate money for the administrative staff position and all that stuff.
Okay.
And I think generally there's been a delta of around 10,000 each year that's turned out.
Okay, yeah, that's been a number. Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely been more turned back in the administrative funds every year, except for that 1 year that $7,500 of administrative funds was committed toward this very project back in the summer of 2019. So that was the 1 year they've, at least in the last, you know, in recent history, that they've allocated the administrative funds toward supporting a project. That was the only year that they did not turn back, you know, 10 grand or more.
When you mentioned goes back, it doesn't go to the general fund, it goes back to the general CPA.
Yeah.
You got the unallocated CPA. Yeah, yeah.
Angus, there's a lot of bullet points here, like can they do all this?
You know, I have a similar question. I mean, especially on things like, you know, determining what the market may be, or whether there might be, you know, prospective entities who might like to do this. You know, the consultation with North Shore, you know, real estate professionals, you know, that's certainly not a market study, obviously. You know, it could just be a couple of phone calls plus getting, you know, public input through the, you know, whatever number of public meetings there'd be. So
I wondered if do we prioritize like one thing, you know, I don't know, it's just like we have a whole bunch of things here that have to be straightened out, I guess you might say, and would one further down on the list preclude something further up happening? I don't know. There's a lot of steps here. I'm not trying to be negative, I looked at all these things and I was overwhelmed. For example, do we have to deal with the Massachusetts Historical Commission and tell them what's going on before we do anything else at all?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
I don't expect you to.
So that's like 56 hours. And that's the seed number at that rate. So Lynn was on earlier, but she. Well, I mean, it's
I think
probable
the
that this
first,
is what they do all the time, you know, this kind of work.
Yeah.
Maybe it looks like a lot to us.
to me, it seems like on page 2, line 1 is like the first thing that should be done, like it's like people
Yeah,
gonna
that's
say,
no, then.
people are gonna say, forget about it, or great idea, but yeah.
Well, that is actually a good point, Archie. I mean, yeah, the first thing you need to do is see, is it realistic? Is there actually a market, based on people who are experienced with the market, is there really a market for it?
I mean, even just like an off the wall idea, or people would say, absolutely no, because people do know what's, the people in the commercial real estate business would know that, forget it, or yeah, we could work something out, I think. Seems like that should be, I don't know, I'm just thinking that we ought to get them in before we do a whole bunch of stuff and then people say, don't even think about it. Am I wrong? Or?
No, I think you're right. I mean, maybe it's a reordering, and I'm not. Yeah, it almost seems like that should be put out in front of discovery. Talk with people who know the market, just, let them understand what the building is, what the building needs.
And that might even like engender some, one person talks to another, some interest.
Yeah.
Then the feasibility of these versus sale is another one that's just one thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it should come before. Well, maybe that should go before, the discovery considerations.
So maybe we have, part A should be feasibility and have those two things.
So if the CPC is on board, or at least theoretically, then that seems good, yeah.
Yeah, but we don't want to spend the money if it's not going to fly, right?
Right. Yeah, we should flesh out those first two questions, put those two questions first and flesh those out. And, if it looks like there clearly is potential market, then pursue the rest of it. But if
1 and 2 don't work, yeah.
then that makes everything else pointless.
Oh, but in terms of, this is part of why the zoning piece is so important, because, if you're talking about potential market, and talking about potential, say, light office, office use, who knows, but right now it's zoned for that. So that's where, I think we all need to understand the current zoning. I believe the only allowed uses in that district are residential and municipal. So I think, if someone's, use of it is predicated on a zoning amendment or relief from the zoning board, I think we need to understand that sooner. Another potential complication is parking. I talked to Lynn earlier today. I sent her Sam's notes, and Lynn said, "Oh, eight spaces ought to be fine for an office." And I said, "Yeah, but what about the fact that some of the residents in that abutting, or adjacent development, Drake's Landing, perceive that they have, that's their overflow parking." And there's reasons going back to the planning board permitting where there's reasons they perceive that. I don't think as a matter of law that's correct.
I think it's that in all our discussions with the select board in the past, and we were the ones dealing with the parking and trying to get additional spaces and stuff. That never came up. That was never an issue.
Well, I've definitely notified the homeowners association that those residents don't have any more nor less rights to park there than any other member of the general public. It's a public easement, but there's no dedicated parking available to Drake's Landing in that location. What I'm saying is the easement that the town accepted, it's Chip's attorney's opinion that it's the town's obligation to provide parking. I don't know if that's correct. We haven't asked our attorney, and we did go ahead and have him pave it.
That's what
this, it came up in the context
that's
of
not what we agreed to.
My understanding, and I wasn't there, but is that there was an initial proposal for Drake's Landing that did include on-street parking, and that the planning board favored a narrower road for less impervious surface. And so there, the way the roads are designed now, there's really not a lot of overflow parking for people who have overnight guests or that kind of thing that don't fit in their driveway. And so I think whether it's right or wrong, I do think there's a perception that there's some amount of overflow parking available to that neighborhood in this location. So anyhow, the reason I don't want to open a can of worms, but I guess the point I'm making is that if someone was interested in it, they need to know that it might be predicated on a zoning change. There may be, I don't know that we could assure them 8 spaces. Maybe we could, but that's if our lawyer says that we don't have to provide parking, because Chip's lawyer says we do have to provide parking. This came up in, a discussion this fall with the homeowners association regarding the expectations for, winter operations in terms of when would the snow be cleared from the lot.
Yeah, that's kind of an ironic twist. So the town is responsible for plowing Daily Drive, correct?
Correct.
No, we're not.
Right. But we're responsible for plowing the parking on Daily Drive.
Have to wait for them to plow Daily Drive before you get in.
Right. Yeah, that is a.
I think, the language of the easement says, that the town will maintain in reasonable condition. I think that's the language that's in the easement. So there is some obligation to maintain parking if it's there. I'm sorry, I didn't intend to open a whole can of worms on this issue. I guess I'm just trying to emphasize that, there's steps that are going to need to be taken to make it, usable by anyone other than for municipal use.
Hey, so the way I interpret it, actually, bottom line here, Archie, you were suggesting, you know, and agreed, you know, these first two bullets on the second page, consult with North Shore real estate professionals and evaluate feasibility of use for sale. But you don't really have a basis until you understand the zoning issues. Until you understand what you can actually do with it, you can't. It's a chicken or egg thing,
But the zoning, but the ZBA would want to know what you intend to do with it. Is it going to be a place where people are building rockets or people are getting a haircut? You know, there's a whole bunch of different, that matters too. So in other words, which comes first? Yeah. You can't ask for a zoning change if you don't tell people what you're gonna do.
yeah, but I think part of this is understanding what the zoning possibilities are. And of course, they might require a change, but it's just understanding what could you conceivably change it to.
Okay.
Before you understand what you have for the market, you have to understand what you can do with it.
Yeah.
I think that's probably, that's the way they're sequenced, the way they are. So the point tonight is to agree with this, move forward with this, and then see if CPA votes to approve the funding, the use of the funding.
So how has that worked in the past, Angus? Is that something that your office prepares or the application for the?
That's how it worked the last time. Is the board, voted, I believe, to support, going forward with the proposal, and then I prepared the proposal. It's the application for administrative funds is simpler than the one for the full funding. But I think, the questions that you asked tonight, PC is going to have those same questions. But they might need to be at peace with the fact that, just like has been the case for, years, no one knows at this point what the future use would be. We could talk about what it might be, but we don't know that.
So is the intention to bring it, to submit it for the December meeting of the CPC? Well,
part of why I, worked on this timeline is so you'd have that option. You don't need to, obviously you don't need to do that. I think if we're going to have a proposal for the Springtown meeting, then we got to start soon. I don't think we can afford to lose a month and hope to meet that timeline. But that's, whether we do that or don't is up to your board, and how big a priority and how much resource do you want to put toward it.
My feeling is that we can't just let this linger forever. So we need to evaluate the options, which I think means taking advantage, taking this and exercising it. Ideally, I think we need to go to town meeting with a couple of options where, where something that's derivative of this process is one of the options.
So then you would want to try to get it on the CPC agenda for the December meeting?
I think so. I personally, I do it.
Yeah, I just didn't know how to work with us to put on somebody to prepare the form, but it is pretty big, and the proposal is here, so.
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. And so who has the time and bandwidth to
I can do the form. It's really not. Yeah. We just basically attach the proposal to the form and, write up a brief narrative. It wouldn't be a big lift. I do think that, like I said, I do think the CPC will ask questions that we may not have the answers to. Whether they want to go forward and fund it or not is up to them. There's going to be questions they'll ask that no one knows the answer to on future use.
I think it would be good if we could pull it off to have them look at it, or have us look at it in December.
Okay.
And then, you know, get started.
All right.
For the year.
So, yeah, I mean, I move we ask the CPC, you know, we bring this to the CPC at the December meeting and ask them to fund this evaluation. I heard what you said earlier, but that affects us. About your bottle over. Yeah. So, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now, just before you move off the topic, I do want to, you know, just draw your attention to the portion of the abutters correspondence. And I know they're not looking for a binding answer on this tonight. I just want to make sure it's not overlooked that they have suggested that whether the future use is, repurposing or, reusing the building or a park or whatever it ends up being, they do, the buffering is very important to them. And so when I spoke to Maura McCarthy last week, there was discussion of, whichever route the town goes, and let's say the town goes the route of an RFP, bidding it out, getting quotes, there was acknowledgement that that's going to be a longer term thing that might take a year and a half, 2 years. And so they just kind of respectfully suggested that if there's a way for the town to do some kind of buffering or screening in the nearer term that would be compatible with whatever the end use ends up being, I know they would favor that. So that's not something, we need to get into in detail tonight, but just want to make sure that was highlighted.
So I wasn't clear where they're looking for the buffering. Is it along Daily Drive or like between the parking lot and?
It's between the building or the lot and their house, but I know Wayne's met them on site in the past. I haven't. My only, I've had correspondence by phone, or I'm not sure if they've been at meetings in the past or not, but I think that if we met them on site and just got a better understanding of what they might like. I do know the parking lot, is they don't like looking out at the parking lot.
Right. There was also, I met with him one time with Wayne, and I think also there's concern about headlamps from the parking lot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. And part of the design plan was to address that. but
Right.
that's not-
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if a car pulls in there at night right now,
Yeah.
the lights shine, and I don't recall where into their house, but they shine into their house, I'm pretty sure.
And so wasn't there a quote or an estimate from Wayne in here?
I don't think it made it into here, but he did. I think he hit reply all after we put them back together. And I think he had floated a figure. And he'd floated a figure in his email of but that was presuming like just, I think, some arborvitaes, and whether that's the right fix or not, I'm not a landscape architect. So. But there's probably something that could be done for modest cost that would probably be really appreciated is the only point.
Yeah. Yeah, we should ask the tree committee. We should also try to go with native stuff if we can. I think, that's something we might want to talk about as policy at some point.
Yeah.
It's not tonight, because it's on the agenda, but.
What kind?
Huh?
It's kind of on the agenda.
I guess really,
From the high school.
yeah, that's true, it is, yeah.
We'll think through what might be a good, I'll talk to Wayne, and I think we talked to Fred's committee, just get some ideas.
Great, okay, thanks, Angus. Okay, so we have the Sultan's Court Trail easement. Yeah, I read through that. I really didn't have any questions. I thought it was pretty clear.
Yeah, it comes to you with the referral from both the Concom and the planning board. I know they both went through it, as well as with legal counsel, so I think it's in good shape.
My other question was on this plan of land, it's not accurate where the water line is, and I don't know if that matters in terms of the easement or not. I mean,
Page that one?
it's right after the text, so page 59.
I thought it was my imagination, it didn't seem right.
Yeah,
I thought I was reading it incorrect.
I don't know if that's critical, because I don't think this plan is even mentioned in the easement. It only mentions it, the overall site plan.
So where is the water line relative
It's pretty
to?
much down the middle. So.
Yeah, okay. So the trail is currently, this portrayed here, looks like would go right on top of the water line.
I know for the purposes of the easement, I'm not sure it matters, but
Yeah.
that's why I'm just raising the question. It should be corrected.
Well, I mean, it would make sense if it's, we don't want to go forward with a misrepresentation where it's of where it's located, and then,
Right. And then
because
have
at
it
some
be
point,
part
somebody's gonna reference that, and then at some point in the future, we're gonna have two competing documents that show different things,
of- Right,
and nobody's gonna remember the history.
except for you.
No, my memory's not good.
I don't know what the process is.
Okay, so this was their surveyor. Their engineer and surveyor. For development.
Well, but you're referring to the Warren Cameron one?
Yeah.
The one, is it page 80 or 90? It's hard to
Right.
see.
60.
Oh, or page 60. Yeah, page 60. So yeah, Wendy had pointed that out relative to the this kind of whetstone greenway. And I had pointed out to Brad and suggested that either he or the prospective vendor on that greenway project get in touch with Mike Goutet to see if there were as-built or something to make sure that that was shown correctly. I didn't hear back from, anyone on whether they did that. I think if you guys want to hold off on this and to take it up 2 weeks from now, I don't think there's any problem with doing that.
Okay.
And it would be with what you're all saying, it would be really good to have the exhibit plan, even though I don't think it's being used for that purpose. I think, you raise a really good point that it gives it kind of the patina of accuracy, so if it's not in fact accurate, it would be good to get that, shown where it actually is.
Right.
You can see here is the water down.
Okay. Right, which is probably on a pipe.
Thank you.
Yeah, good point. Well, I agree with you, because I guess that's something we can take up at the next meeting.
Yeah, I can, I can follow up with, I don't know, whoever I need to follow up with. I don't know if it's Mike Goutet or if it's Tom Nevy or if it's, yeah. But this plan this on page 60, this has shown up in a couple of documents recently and actually going a couple of years as well. So.
Yeah, so that's if it is inaccurately represented and it's showing up in multiple documents already, that's a problem, you know?
Yeah. So, okay, so it sounds like you're going to table this one and look to get a, clear information on the location of the water line.
Okay.
So,
Everything else looks good though.
okay, great.
Yeah, right. It'll be nice when it's done.
Yeah.
It's built.
Yeah.
So I guess on the cyber aware municipality, this is a great effort on Christian's part. Just pushing our cybersecurity in general, taking that on as a project is great. That's important. I know we've talked about it for a couple of years, so it's good that something's happening. Do we need to vote to accept this?
Authorizing to pursue.
Get to authorize?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Really?
So it's essentially saying we are going to
Okay.
do it.
Okay.
And this is a grant, right?
It's more of a recognition. There's no money involved. Basically, they have these training modules that they make available to us and kind of spoon feed us the curriculum, and then we commit to, administer that training with our staff. So it's kind of a win-win, but there's no money associated with it.
Okay, I was just wondering between the three options for training, whether there's any cost implications for those. You're recommending the set your timeline training, right?
Yep.
The money is the ransom that you don't pay.
It also, I think maybe it's like a future stuff, like when things come available. If you're this kind of community, you get the grants.
Right. It's sort of in a way analogous to Green Communities program where things become available to us because we're designated green community.
Yeah, so Rick, to your question, yeah, executive must be established. So you guys are the chief executive, so you would need to, opt in.
At least they're practicing good cyber security on their own office of cyber.
Hey, can I just give a quick anecdote? It's actually kind of fun. If you look on page 65 at that email, you'll see a little bit different formatting at the top because I hit forward. The reason I did that is because if I printed the PDF, the actual email I got from the sender, it would have been page 3 before the content started because all of the recipients were in the to line, which is kind of a pet peeve of mine. And so I forwarded it to myself, deleted all the recipients, so you would have like a more truncated, cleaner copy. But the point is, I thought it was a little odd that the person running this program included in the to line instead of the BCC line, probably the names of 200 people. So.
Oh, okay.
That's actually a more common thing now. A lot of municipalities are doing that. Haverhill did it. But this is an external email, not from the system. Pay attention.
Well, yeah, but anyway, I think you got the point. But I would always say put everyone on the BCC line. It's not, I don't need to know 200 people's email address.
Right, exactly. Unless you want to add it to your spam list.
Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe they'll learn something from us too.
All right, so I move that we pursue designation as a cyber aware community. Is that adequate?
Yep, that's great.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks. So the the letter of intent for municipal vulnerability program, just quick background, and then I maybe jumped the gun by a week or 2 weeks. So last year, we, the select board, or was at that point, I guess it was the Board of Selectmen, signed off on or approved a letter of intent for municipal vulnerability program action grant, which we did not follow through on. It was decided as we're trying to get everything figured out that we just needed more information, needed more detail, need to understand of the multitude of things we could pursue for the action grant, which really made the most sense or which were most realistic, and hit the right buttons so that we would win an award. And the spawn of the MVP action or core group, I guess it was a core team, action MVP core team, is now the Climate Change Resiliency Committee. The Climate Change Resiliency Committee is meeting this Wednesday night, and we'll be focusing primarily on the topics for the action grant we'd like to apply for this year. So I, in retrospect, should have held off a couple of weeks on this, but what I'm trying to make sure doesn't happen is that we don't end up dragging our feet, the committee, progressively dragging our feet as it goes through different bodies and end up in a similar situation to last year where we have to get a grant application together and we don't have all of our background information and say, well, I guess we won't do it again. So, so I expect that next week there'll be more information, there'll be a proposal. In general, one of the projects that will be proposed will be related to River Road and potential for flooding and erosion on River Road. And that's not going to be actually accomplishing tasks on the ground. It'll be more aligned with understanding the problem, defining the problem and defining characteristics of solution, what types of solutions might be applicable. And then we'll have to subsequently go for, another probably larger grant. There probably will also be things related to invasives and, promoting things that naturally grow here. Trying to maintain the ecosystems that we have as opposed to letting them fail because of climate change and other human factors. So I expect that 2 weeks from now that we'll have something more defined.
So would that be 2 action grants, or is it 1 grant?
No, it'll be 1 grant that would be applied for, but segments to the grant, and segments might be approved or might not be approved. I think that's the way that it makes the most sense to do it, to break it up into segments. So we'll come back to that, I think, in 2 weeks. Angus, there's a FY23 budget schedules in here. I guess this is for us to review and comment on if we see.
It's more informational, the main thing for you guys is the policy direction. I just wanted to, since you had a draft of the schedule in your last packet, I wanted to include the schedule that we'd circulated to department heads so you had it. It's just basically, it's very similar to what you'd seen a couple of weeks ago. It's just a little bit different. The main thing for your discussion is the policy direction.
Okay. Yeah, so I've marked a few things on the policy direction. I know last year we had a number, I think Archie, you proposed 1.5% that we went with last year, and in the end, I don't recall where we ended up, this is not the same as taxes, but ironically, in the end, our net taxes for the fiscal year ended up essentially seeing almost no change, for a variety of reasons. I'm kind of flummoxed as to what to grab here for a number, if we feel we need to put in a target number.
I put, I thought we could have a higher target number this year for several reasons. Certainly in the most recent consumer price CPI index, the new number hasn't come out through November, but through October, it was annualized at 6.2%. So in other words, the cost of goods and services just average, not indicative of all different things, but has gone up 6% in the most recent 12 months. So things are going to cost more, unquestionably. We don't know what amount of new growth we're going to be able to count on in the coming year, but assuming that there is some, and there certainly is some construction activity taking place in the town. So if I would rather not go higher than the proposition 2.5, but I would say if we have 2.5 and then we have some new growth with that, that's giving us a reasonable amount of money to spend on what the town needs to do. So I'm just feeling that now in this year, as essentially people's as you just said, they're with the tax rate and the going down a little bit and the assessments going up, that people actually didn't have much of an increase this year. For the most part, most people had a flat, yeah. So I don't have a problem with us going up somewhat this year, which is, I can't believe I'm saying that.
I haven't been here long and I'm shocked.
Yeah. I mean, the irony is we have no idea that we would end up with effectively flat taxes this year, and it's a great thing.
I came up with this last year lower because we didn't know what was going to happen with the pandemic, with unemployment. There was, at a certain point, there was 20% unemployment in Massachusetts, which is insane. And we didn't know if people were going to have jobs or be able to pay their real estate taxes and so forth. And it turned out that things are better. And in fact, the Commonwealth has, even without the money from the federal government, the state's revenues, just their regular tax collections are way up, which is, I don't understand it, but.
There are a lot of variables, it's hard to figure out.
And we know that just in terms of our town, from our data from the collections, the town hasn't had to, put anybody in tax collection situation. The collections of our property taxes have been 100% essentially. So again, not what we predicted, but good, so indicating that at least the people in the town of West Newbury are things are going okay. So, okay, I'll shut up.
So are you suggesting 2.5% or something less than that?
No, I'm suggesting 2.5%. And it will be more in actuality,
Right.
if there's any new growth, yeah.
Which there is, there will be. There hasn't been built, or that have been built. Okay.
But maybe fewer, because the daily property thing is pretty much, those are built out. Those are big,
Right.
I know this is written into that language, but I just want to make sure everyone's, totally clear on it, that percentage does refer to the non-school budget. Because obviously we don't control the Pentucket or, the other school budgets. So that's kind of the measuring stick that is in there.
Angus, shouldn't you? I don't get I never get the acronym right. Is it APRA or ARPA?
ARPA.
So, should we mention anything about that in this?
I think it'd be great. Yeah, I mean, we kind of just scratched the surface on that a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about maybe a process of trying to program or at least start programming those potential use of those funds on a parallel track with the budget, since we're all focused and we've got everyone pretty much focused on not just operating budget, but capital budget. It seems like it'd be a nice alignment to work out an ARPA, not necessarily a binding plan to spend every last penny of it, but something to really make meaningful progress toward how are we going to best allocate those resources. I think to do that on a parallel track with the budget would make a lot of sense.
So when do we have to spend it?
I think 3 years, Stephanie, is it through FY 24 or 25? Do you happen to?
Quite a while then, okay.
FY24, I believe.
Okay.
And it was aggregate of about 700,000, a little over 700,000.
A little more than that, yeah.
Yeah.
So how would that be a policy? How would you express that as a policy?
Where you want that fund spending over some.
I mean, one thing that's, item 5 on this list is very much still a work in progress, which, those of you who have been active with the capital committee know that evaluating whether that 500,000 is the right amount is still a work in progress. So that I think should stay on there. And maybe with regard to the ARPA, you could add something to say, something, we could wordsmith it later, but something along the lines of, in updating capital program, include updated, sources of revenue, including non-local revenue such as ARPA, something like that, that kind of like plants the seed that's going to be part of the discussion. I'm just thinking out loud.
Can it be used to indirectly go into a stabilization fund rather than being targeted towards a particular thing? Was one of the things delineated by the program.
No, I think it's going to need to be actually put to use within that 3-year time frame.
That's what I mean. So it can't be, you can't say, well, we're going to put 200,000 of that into the stabilization. You can't say that.
No, you couldn't. But what you could do is, what we've been kind of trying to do with the capital program, and we just haven't had the bandwidth to, we've got these great ideas, but they take, many dozens of hours and just haven't been able to get it done yet, is to build in, basically rebuild in the capital program to include the balances in the stabilization fund and show how that drawdown, just like in the ones from a few years ago, that Dick Preble did would show the balance. It would show if you draw down what's in there, what's your year-end balance, kind of looking ahead 5 or 10 years, which was a great tool. And we'd like to do that, but we don't want those revenues to just assume that everything's coming out of stabilization, because there are other funding sources.
Okay, I see.
To build out the capital program more like a development pro forma with your sources and uses. I think we've done a really good job with the uses on the capital program, but we definitely have some work to do on the sources of funds.
Picking one or two, in other words, we could pick an appropriate capital item that would fit in with the ARPA's regulations.
Right. Yeah, I think the challenge we're going to have, one of the challenges is that water projects are very clearly eligible, but is the community, is that going to create issues of putting some or maybe a lot of those funds toward water where that's an enterprise fund. But other than water, there's not a lot of capital categories that would be eligible. One thing that would be stormwater. So that's another one where that may allow us to accelerate, some project more quickly than we would if it had to just wait its turn in the capital program.
Because I don't really have a sense for stormwater, what are.
If there's a culvert that needs to be recycled, we don't have those projects right now in our capital program.
Yeah.
But once we start digging deeper with that River Road, then we may find those projects.
Yeah, we may also, there's a place where there's a good chance that we'll find other sources than town dollars for those programs, I think. For culverts along River Road, if it's related to addressing resiliency issues, I think there'll be other sources. At least, maybe not for all of it, but for a significant part. Okay. I think we should test the waters at some point, try to test the waters as far as how the community would support funding some water infrastructure project with ARPA funds.
And especially because it's like, we can frame it as it's almost like found money. This wasn't money that is even less so than, say, CPA money. This is money that's just let's be honest, it was printed by the federal government. It wasn't even taxed. It was just like, okay, we're gonna give every community all much money. So it's less. Yeah, you can argue, okay, this would be something that would lower, I'm using on something that we normally would be spending municipal tax money on, but perhaps in this case, because of what it can be spent on is somewhat limited for things that we need. We can say that, yeah, this is an appropriate use of all town money in that situation, because we can't do it for other things. We actually can't use it for certain capital items that we do need. We can't buy a fire engine.
And also, if we could identify water projects that supply town used facilities that everybody got.
Right.
You know, that would be another way to frame it.
Yeah, that's, I was thinking just along those same lines, that we need, a project that's been talked about is, the Church Street, Prospect Street. But, there may be some objection there because it arguably it services the whole system. Ultimately, everything services the whole system, but it, services neighborhoods as opposed to, the broader distribution system. So there might be pushback there, but, the question is, do we focus, if we decide that water is the right place for it to go, do we look at something that benefits municipal use as much as possible? Something, not necessarily this building, but benefits the system specifically in an area there's heavy demand for municipal use? Or do we go with what the water department considers to be the highest priority, the most important things that have to be supported? Which, to me, from a rational standpoint, that's what it should be. Is deal with the water department, the people who are experts at the water system believe is what requires the most attention, because if there's a failure of some kind, the system stops working one place or another, it effectively impacts the entire system.
Angus, I would think that I don't know when the Capital Improvements Committee is gonna have a meeting, but maybe at their first meeting of the year, you could, delineate things that need to be done that fit in with ARPA. In other words, so it's very complicated, I know, but if we could just identify a few things that fit in with that, and my feeling would be not to use all the money up in 1 year. I don't think I would. I think if we have a while, I would sort of maybe keep some of it for a year or two. Or you think it's not enough to even use it all? I don't know.
Yeah, it seems to me we're pretty good in reserves, right? As things currently stand,
We are, yeah.
And so, I don't know, I guess I'm inclined to just kind of get what we can off the list, not what we can off.
Okay.
I mean, that's just my thought.
No,
if it was my own money in my own house, and I had things that had to be done, and I had to make a decision with, instead of holding on to funds, I would get the project out of the way.
Okay.
I mean, that's the way I.
But you make a good point that it's not like we haven't saved money yet.
Yeah, I mean, we have, I think relative to most communities, we have really solid reserves.
Archie, I think your suggestion's great, to at the next capital meeting to include an agenda topic for ARPA and give background on what it can be used for and which of the items on the existing capital program may be eligible. Other than water, I haven't found one, but we may, once we read more fine print. Water is the obvious one.
Yeah.
Because there isn't a need for a specific line item in ARPA for repair of GAR buildings from the 19th century.
Even that would make up the difference. It would make up the difference between the bid and what we already budgeted. Okay, well, so, on item number 10 on this, on the policy, I just look where I made notes. Says we propose to consider within the FY 22 budget, so it moved down the FY 23 budget process. Whether the board of selectmen or the select board will recommend a free cash transfer in order to reduce the FY 23 tax rate. So that, and then it says at the annual town meeting, but this year that was done at fall special town meeting, which seemed like it made sense because we then had certified free cash numbers. So you just, doesn't it make more sense to do it then than to do it at the annual town meeting? Because then you have real numbers to work with.
Yes.
To me, it does.
Yeah.
I think, if I think back a year ago, I think that part of the spirit of that item was that I think the board wanted to be clear with the public and with the finance committee that if a free cash transfer was going to be needed in order to achieve a certain tax rate, that you kind of be straightforward about that at the annual town meeting and not kind of go through the whole process and then a couple of months later say, oh, to get the tax rate where we want it, we want to do a free cash transfer. So I think the spirit of it was kind of transparency, but I think the practicality of it, it does make more sense in the fall town meeting when you have, even if the assessed values aren't certified, you know generally what they're going to be and you know what free cash is going to be or what it is. So practically, it does make a lot more sense in the fall. But I think the spirit of it was at least partly to be upfront about, if that was going to be factored in to get a certain tax rate, to just be clear about that.
I don't think anyone would have predicted the size of the change in the assessments until it actually happened. That was a huge change in the last year or so here.
Could not agree more. Yeah.
And hopefully it doesn't keep on happening like that, because then nobody will be able to buy a house.
Things go back down.
Yeah. Good night.
Usually. We got to circle there, Rick.
Oh, I was just,
Well, that's just the number.
yeah, that was just that, that's what I'm trying to.
Yeah.
That was my, but I, I similarly marked up the 1.5%, just trying to figure out what made sense there. Yeah, so of course, we don't know what the school district will propose for next year, so if we go right to 2.5%. Of course, it doesn't account for new growth, but if we go to 2.5%, and the school district, if the school district would end up having to do an override, say related to, pushback on salaries, teaching salaries, or something along those lines, then. Or not the school district going for override, but the school district, going above 2.5%, and that would put us in a situation where our only way to deal with it would be an override. Right. So. But you're right, I mean, what you're saying about, the, CPI, their inflation is a real thing right now, which it hasn't been for a long time.
One thing just to bring some not great news. I was in touch just in the last 2 weeks with the business manager over at Whittier, and they are projecting a significant increase in our budget for FY23. I think by, it's all very preliminary, but based on what we talked about, over $100,000. I wrote it 113,000. That's a very preliminary number. But the reason for that is our enrollment is going from 9 students to 14 students. And then also underlying, increase of about 5% in their budget. So, we could have a significant increase in the Whittier budget next year. We expect we will, I should say.
Well, that's a big number.
Yeah. When she first sent me the note,
that makes sense, because it's about 20,000, 19,000, 20,000 per student, so 5 times that is 100. Yeah.
When she first emailed me on November 22nd, I misunderstood and thought she was referring to the FY22 budget. I almost had a heart attack. We're gonna have to go to, I don't know how we would have found that money.
I can attest to that. I was in the room when he got the email. His face went flush.
But he didn't have to grab his chest, so that's good.
So do we need to carry number 2 still, impacts of COVID-19?
Yeah, I was wondering about that too, if that's, I mean, do we, it's all such a wild card, but we didn't know what to expect. We still don't really know what to expect, but so far, as far as economic, financial impact on the town, our worst fears have completely not been realized.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, Wendy, but keep things simple.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Can we get rid of 6?
Yeah, 6 goes. Yeah. Although the problem doesn't go away.
No.
You want to put anything in here about wages, general direction? The wage study?
Right, yeah, so, yeah, how would we phrase that, or how would we phrase it? So we try to plan and budgeting to account for.
Possible.
Yeah, to be a buffer. I mean, that brings up the question, should there be, as Stephanie was explaining, they've done, and they did when she was in Ipswich, and currently other communities do it, where they have I guess it's a dedicated fund for, to account for unexpected wage changes.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea. I don't know how you would determine the amount of money to put in it, but.
Well, yeah, this is where, Angus, you were explaining up in Hampton, you had a fund, I don't think it was for wages specifically, but there they had a fund that was essentially, there was a base number in the fund, and it was replenished on an annual basis after it had been partially completed. You know, so say if it was $100,000 and you used $80,000  1 year, next year you fund, you
Oh, I see. About.
replace the balance. Is that right? Is that the way it was handled roughly?
Yeah, it was called a reserve fund. It worked really similar to our stabilization funds. And we would like to, you know, we would try to keep a certain balance at the beginning of the year. And it was a wage stabilization fund, basically. It was called a reserve fund, but and it could be tapped with, of course, you know, it was a council form of government. So the council could, you know, would vote things. Here, we'd have to bring it back to town meeting with stabilization. So it was different in that respect. But the point is, there was an available fund that was to deal with anything from mid-year, you know, wage adjustments to, you know, payout of accrued vacation at separation of service, those kinds of unbudgeted personnel costs. There was kind of like a, you know, a backup fund we could tap with a vote of the council. So it was a pretty streamlined process. But part of that's just because it was a different form of government.
Yeah.
But I think some resource is really helpful because it's a dynamic situation. You know, we're not a huge organization, but there are a lot of employees and things change over the course of the year for various reasons. And, you know, if you're the way we have budgeted historically on wages is really kind of like right down to the dollar. And so then you have a mid-year change, whether because there's personnel change or maybe someone gets a, you know, whether it's a merit increase or whatever, if we don't have that somewhere, and I think the model that Stephanie described earlier is probably more relevant in Massachusetts, where it was more of a, what did you call it, Stephanie? Management transfer funds account?
Yeah, management transfer account within the general fund.
So it's kind of like generally, you know, it was budgeted for general purposes, but then could be made available for other expense lines that were running short or needed more. Is that right?
It was budgeted for pretty much for personnel, as well as unforeseen circumstances that came up from the town management level throughout the year. So a little bit different than what we currently use for reserve fund transfers. These were more like if there was a staffing shortage, like Angus kind of talked about, if something came up mid-year and we had a crisis happen, there was funding that was appropriated that could be used.
Do you think we have a hard sell getting that by town meeting? What do you mean, you're gonna have a pot of money there just to give away and no one's gonna know about it? Just plain devil's advocate.
I
I can hear someone saying that, yeah.
But if it's presented in the context of we're doing this wage study and we are anticipating that there's gonna have to be adjustments.
Yeah, in other words, I think doing this as a warrant article rather than making it a line item that's gonna be there all the time makes it more palatable. I don't think people, I just think it might be tough to pass if we make a warrant article. There's always gonna be this thing there. I don't know, I'm just.
I think that's a great idea, Archie, because it really is it's a particular thing. I think that would be a good idea, and that could be under the oversight of the select board, since you all, have authority to vote wages anyway, so it would go through you anyway, but that would probably give people, some, level of comfort that everything would be out, transparent. But, so in terms of the budget kind of policy direction, you could write something that's a little more squishy at this stage to say, whether within the operating budget or in a, or other mechanism, warrant article, provide resources to implement changes as may result from the, wage and compensation study now underway. something like that.
Perfect.
Did you write that down, Jim?
Wendy got it all down.
No, I only have 4 words.
The only thing I would say is if we do a special warrant article, the issue with that is that salaries are appropriated most likely within the town, within the operating budget. So once you have a side account, how are you going to budget to get that funding back into the general fund later on? You're not really going to. So you're not going to see the increase of the person's salary because they're going to be paid out of a different funding source. So I would kind of err against caution if we're going to use it for salaries.
So you're talking about, for instance, on like multi-year reporting, that the numbers wouldn't be true numbers, but also that there's, I think, isn't there some complication with regard to like withholdings and payroll and like paying payroll out of an article? Doesn't that create some reporting challenges?
Correct. It's not really reporting challenges. It can be a little bit, Angus, but more so as if for budgeting purposes, when we present the budget, you're not going to see the full person's salary within there. So you're always going to have this other funding source. And then once the person's salary is fully moved.
But Stephanie, if you, no matter how, if we did it as a one chunk, say, under the town manager line item, it wouldn't reflect, say, on the council on aging wages either.
Well,
no matter where you put it, if it's a chunk that is then gonna be divided up between other between employees in different departments, that's not gonna show their total wages either.
So how the account worked in Ipswich is it was transferred out of that specific account that was budgeted as a separate line item within the town managers to the different departments. So it's essentially like the reserve fund mechanism.
But I think in that case, Stephanie, if I recall our earlier conversations, I think in Ipswich, the town manager actually has the authority to approve line item transfers, which is obviously 100% different than what we've got here. So yeah, I had that in my last job too. So that's something I cannot do in this town. But I think we understand your intent. The mechanism, we got to think that through. But and just for those watching from home, there's a wage study that's just at the early stages that's going to be complete this fiscal year, but it's not going to be complete in time for the budget, the time the budget gets presented. So the idea that the board is trying to get to is if that study results in documented basis for changes in wages that would cost the town more than is budgeted. The idea is to have some mechanism within FY23 to actually take action to adjust wages as appropriate, rather than waiting till the FY24 budget cycle.
Any other ones that are specific that maybe be changed? I think that was it.
Yeah, I didn't have any others. I mean, item 4, I think remains the same, with the school stabilization fund and continue to grow down, that doesn't change.
Yeah, and that's flexible enough to not.
Yeah.
That doesn't give exact dollar.
Okay, well, have we done enough with this at this point? We'll need to figure out, add the wording and figure out the mechanism for the, to deal with the wage adjustments.
Well, I don't think we have to put the exact mechanism there, we just say the budget process this year will take into consideration the wage study and that it has been factored in ahead of.
Since this is a document that's going to be, once it's finalized, it is going to be broadly circulated. Do you want to, we could just mark up this and have something that's in front of you at your next meeting? That way, you know exactly how it's written and because it is going to go around broadly. So we do want to make sure it's 100% reflective of what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
And I don't see any problem with the budget process if it, if this doesn't go out for another 2 weeks.
Okay, then let's do that, okay.
And that way also, if any of you, think of other things that you might want to get in here, because obviously you had a crowded agenda tonight with a lot of other things. So if you think of something else that you might want to consider or put in front of the board, that gives you a little more time.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. So the next packet then, Angus will include this with limited, with some markups based on what we talked about tonight.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Section 6 gone.
Yeah, 2 and 6 we have struck. Yep.
So middle school, high school project, it was interesting that matrix for the Middlesex, or for the middle school, high school project. Every block, it was Groundhog Day, every block was identical. Except for closed for the holiday.
Basically, all the exterior stuff has been done, and they're putting, the utility services in, and then actually doing drywall and flooring, and looking really great.
Have you been in it recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool.
You gonna give us a tour?
Sure.
Yeah, let's see what it's looking like now. Okay, well, it's good to see that things are proceeding apace. And within budget.
Hang on 1 second. I guess there was one thing it said, it was something about a large amount of ledge that will need to be, what does that mean?
Yeah.
They would have done all the.
No, so it's under the existing high school, so when we go to demo it, they're anticipating a ledge under there, and that's gonna have to be leveled. But they don't know the extent of it.
Wait, under the existing high school?
Yeah.
So why would that be now?
Well, because when they demo it, they're gonna have to, work through the ledge that's there, part of it extends out to the parking lot, so it's just an unknown at this point, yeah. So it's the kind of thing you won't know until you actually start excavating how much ledge is over there.
It's because whatever is going where the school is gonna be lower than the
It's
current
gonna be,
floor.
there has to be a reason, so it's gonna have to be flat. In other words. Okay. Okay.
Don't want to be a neighbor.
Mr. No.
Right. Big old goody did for the tenant.
Yeah.
Some bad too. Next deal. There's we have a letter from the organization West Newbury Wild Native, WN2, and then also some, support for it from Open Space. And quite honestly, I think it's a very well thought out and well written letter by WN2, and then I looked at the response from the landscape architect, and I almost felt like they hadn't read the letter, or at least hadn't understood the letter.
So is that something that you want to comment on?
Well, from a personal level, I'm supportive of what the letter requests. And, I think it's something that, the school is for the future. And everything about it ought to be focused on the future. And that's what was being asked for, and for a change in landscaping plan, and the letter focused on asking for things that are focused on the future. On maintaining our ecosystem into the future. And it seems as though the landscape architecture didn't get that. Didn't read that.
It was kind of dismissive.
Yeah, definitely.
Having said that, though, how much does it cost to make these changes at this point? I wish this had been brought up a lot earlier.
Well, actually, it wasn't clear to me how much, so, there are assumptions here that, he talks about trees at 4 to 4.5 inch caliber that they're going to put in. This seems to me to be this funny focus on, you build the school and you plant these trees and you try to make it look like it's already been there for 20 years.
Right.
And you plant trees that size, and when you plant trees that size, they can never possibly, it's impossible for them to be as healthy as a tree that you grew from a very small plant in the same spot, because its roots are, from the outset, disturbed. Its roots will never form the natural, what they would naturally, if say it grew from a cedar, grows from a little whip, what's called a whip, it, because it's been bound and burlapped and its roots constrained. Now, and sure, maybe it'll survive for a bunch of years, but it'll never be as healthy.
Is that right?
Yeah. But my understanding is that it just can't be, because its roots are compromised from the very start. To me, they should plant smaller plants that are native and let them, grow, choose appropriately based on what you want for final size, but let them what they would do naturally.
Okay.
But that's my personal opinion, so I don't know if anybody else has thoughts or.
No, I'm totally in agreement with it. I just wonder, if it's going to cost an additional 100,000 or something, then I have a problem.
Well, there is an owner's contingency fund to pay for things that weren't,
Well, I know, but this is something that we should have. This isn't like, hitting the waterway by accident.
No,
This is something we should have told them about earlier.
Right, but that only contingency fund has been, like, they changed the kind of tile, they just changed their mind about what they wanted, and it wasn't an original bid, and so this fund was used to pay for it, and to me, this is something that would fall in that category, if we could get them to.
Yeah.
I agree to it.
They talk about the majority of proposed trees are specified at 3 to 3.5 inch caliber. What is a tree at 3 to 3.5 inch? I mean, it depends upon the species of tree, but you know, you're probably looking at $500, $1,000 a tree. You know, you buy a little tree that's, you know, and that tree is probably 10 years old. You buy a little tree that's a couple of years old that is going to be healthier in the long term, and you pay $20 for it. I don't. I'm unconvinced. I would really have to see to believe what's being suggested our cost. I really want to see what, you know, what the real deal is. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. You know, I don't want to put things in my own personal experience terms, but sometimes you have to. You know, I've transplanted a lot of trees in my life on my own property, you know, from woods around my property, and transfer them when they're really young, and they grow really well and they're really healthy. And in that case, because I'm transplanting my own woods, they cost me nothing. And they produce incredibly strong, healthy trees. You know, they could do the same thing here. It doesn't have to look like, you know, the day the school is moved into, it doesn't have to look like, you know, it's been there for 20 years based on the plantings. That's my take on it. And, you know, and it's, you know, everything about the school should be trying to teach lessons and to kids. And one of the most important lessons right now is understanding sustainability is really important. And this is all part of that, you know, and, you know, science.
I'm not arguing any of that. I'm just arguing the nuts and bolts of.
Yeah. But again, I emphasize, I don't, you know, it's my personal opinion. I mean, Angus, you pointed out that it's sometimes not wise for, you know, say for a select board to tell a school committee what they ought to, or to suggest to a school committee or the school district what they ought to be doing. It's a separate, you know, separate quasi-governmental aid entity.
I was referring to collective bargaining, Rick.
Oh, were you? Okay.
That was just a bit, yeah, I was suggesting.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Maybe I got my emails mixed up.
Yeah, no, I wasn't referring to this issue.
Oh, that's right. It was. Okay. So,
yeah.
Sorry about that.
If this comes up at the building committee meeting, though, you know, if I can say the select board in West Newbury is in favor of at least evaluating this, or determining the cost differential, or, you know.
I'd be good with that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Like, have these trees, for example, like these trees already been, you know, purchased and they're sitting in, you know, waiting to be delivered, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Certainly, this sounds like a pretty big tree. My Christmas tree was 6 inches in diameter.
This is your 18-foot Christmas tree?
Yes. It weighs a lot. But so that was so those are pretty big trees if they're 3 or 4 inches.
Yeah. Yeah, well, your Christmas tree doesn't have a roof all up. You cut it down.
No,
Yeah, so these trees have 1,000-pound root ball or probably more. Yeah. Yeah, if that was said at the building committee meeting, I think that'd be great, you know.
Yeah, I'm wondering if because this is kind of an unknown entity as well, native, you know, that maybe, I don't know, maybe that's why they dismissed it. They just weren't. I mean, I think this group is trying to get other open space committees and conservation commissions to also record it. So I don't know if that would have more weight or.
Yeah, yeah, well, you know, our open space did weigh in on it.
Yeah.
And, you know, interestingly enough, I mean, the group, you know, while Native is working with, one of the teachers and it was Andrew Bullock, you know, they're working on basically a naturalized, you know, that stream that runs down between, you know, the current middle school, and high school, and, you know, trying to work with that area to renaturalize it. And it's all a lesson, you know, it's all part of the educational process, at least, you know, the students that want to engage that particular set of information. You know, so they are already working with the school, sort of indirectly, because it's primarily through, you know, from the faculty network. Yeah, so, I don't know if we need to make a motion and vote on that.
No, just if you both are in favor of at least evaluating a little bit more, seeing what the difference in cost would be.
Yeah, and getting them, you know, I think it's important that they think a little bit about the educational message. You know, you know, so the school is, you know, it represents a lot of things, and you know, it's construction.
The landscape architect would care less.
Right.
He doesn't care.
Yeah. But ultimately, the school, you know, administration and school board make the decision, or full committee make the decision.
I actually think it's the school building committee that would make the decision.
Okay. Okay.
I think that's the appropriate place to discuss. it,
Okay,
at this
great.
point.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, just like the school building committee has to vote on any change orders or any use of contingency, that all at this point is the school building committee's authority.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Minutes. There's a big set of minutes.
It's a long meeting.
That was a long meeting, big set of minutes. I'm good with it. I mean, I found everything to be understandable. There were a couple things that, you know, if you put them in context, you understood what was going on. Or I did, I think.
CPS instead of CPC, is that?
Actually, that was one that, yeah, that I do remember that, yeah.
And then the January town meeting? On that page.
Okay, so now you flagged me twice, because I do remember reading that too. And saying-
Chair Parker stating would have to be brought to the January town meeting.
Yeah. That was a limited attendance meeting.
I wasn't even invited.
Angus, I think what we agreed on is that we would mark up minutes and give them to Jenny. Was that right?
Yeah, we did. I think we're going to be in the process of kind of transitioning that over to the clerk's office, but for now, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and the vendor has said, you know, she's happy to send them in Word. We could circulate to the board. You guys could send markups ahead of time, and then what you vote that night is already marked up. So, but I'll send you guys a note on that separately, because yeah, I got a note from her late last week that you know, she's happy to do that. I think that's what she's done for the planning board, is send them in Word. The board members mark up the draft, and then when they vote them, it's all reflecting of any you know, revision the board members make.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was trying to, yeah. It's funny you mentioned those two things. I didn't notice both of those. And I knew what they meant. Or didn't mean.
I think where it says January should have been annual. that in January.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Angus, did you want to run through the town manager updates?
Sure. Yeah, I'm sorry, did you take a vote on the minutes?
Oh, no, we didn't.
Okay.
So I'll move to accept them as marked up.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so on to updates. So item M, obviously, Rick recognized Teresa early in the meeting, which I would just echo that. She's been really enjoyed working with Teresa. She's done a lot of great work for many, many years, over 16 years. So it's a real loss for the town. Wish her every happiness and every success as she goes forward. We do have a meeting with the Council on Aging Board this Wednesday, and I've been in correspondence with members of that board, actually going back to early this fall, as we've been looking to set up more office coverage during the period, that because of medical issue. So we had been working toward setting up our assistant town clerk, Christine Marshall, to actually set up office down in the Council on Aging from Monday through Thursday from 8:30 to 12:30, so that there would be better office presence. We also, as of about a month ago, have been transferring the calls from Council on Aging up to the town clerk's office directly, since they're staffed full time. So that's been good, just so when people call, there's actually a person to answer rather than just returning voicemails. But so we'd been working with Christine on that. She's delighted to do it. One of her prior jobs was spending 6 years with the Senior Center and Council on Aging in Andover. She really loves the work. She's very fluent on some of the programs, whether that's Meals on Wheels or, the dialing, the ride services and different things like that. So Christine's really happy to do that. Teresa welcomed that support. And now with Teresa's notice of her departure from the town, we're now kind of morphing that, what had been kind of seen as an interim backup office coverage, into more of something that could be in place. I would estimate 3 to 4 months between posting, recruiting, hiring, and then someone actually, starting the new job. My guess is it would be mid-March at the earliest, before there's actually a new director in place. So with that, the need for interim coverage obviously becomes more urgent. So we've been working with Jake, IT guy, to set up a separate workstation down there. So it should be this week that Christine will start to set up for basically what amounts to about half of her work week to provide an in-person presence in the Council on Aging. And I met a couple of weeks ago with 4 members of the COA board, and they were very, very happy with that proposal. They thought that was going to work out great. So that should happen this week. So I wanted to make you aware of that kind of interim coverage plan for that office. And as part of that, with Teresa's last day being a week from this Friday, there's obviously going to be a couple of months of monthly newsletters. So, working with Christine and with my office, we're going to keep all that on track and make sure from a customer service standpoint, we don't miss a beat. And in fact, I think it's, I think we've got a good game plan. So I think people will be happy. I also wanted to be aware of that on the physical COA. If you've been down in that office in the last couple of weeks, you would have seen indication of some construction activity. So I wanted to make you aware. This has kind of been brewing since early this fall. I forget when this first came to my attention. I think it was probably in September. but this, there's a structural issue with how the skylight was installed initially. Basically, the beam isn't long enough. And so Sam and Wayne have been working on, understanding the problem. They brought in a structural engineer a couple of times and have basically scoped out a short-term fix and a longer-term fix. And the longer-term fix is, pretty costly. The short-term fix, there's an update from what you have in here that was saying $5,000 to $7,000. It's now, we think, more like $12,000. Wayne and Brian met again earlier today. That's our intent, is to go forward with that short-term fix, to make it safe. And we do intend to seek a reserve fund transfer for FinCom once we have a better handle on what the costs are going to be. Because that's not, if it's around the $12,000, that's well beyond what can just be absorbed in the budget. So since that's pretty significant project, I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of what's going on and why. And then we're also working to put together a capital summary sheet and cost estimate, and to bring that to get built into the capital program for the bigger fix, which preliminary estimates suggest that could be $50,000 to $70,000. So yeah, there's been a lot happening with Council on Aging.
So Angus, on Christine's assistance, will that increase her number of hours, or is that just being absorbed in her?
No, and no, it would be within her hours. And I should have made this clear initially. Her job isn't changing. She's still the assistant town clerk. Yeah. She's just going to be sitting in a different location. So she is gonna, she has offered to help with things like the newsletter and continuity. And, she will be interfacing with some of the vendors like the yoga instructor and things like that to keep things running, keep putting the bills through. So she will be helping to run the office, but, she'll still be the assistant town clerk and doing the work of the assistant town clerk. But yeah, I don't, if she's sitting down there, I don't want people to perceive that she's like the interim director. She's not. She's the assistant town clerk. We're fortunate that she's got that skill set from the 6 years she spent in that office in Andover, and also has a lot of, enthusiasm and willingness to help us out, on that kind of temporary basis. So yeah, the idea is she'd start her day in the clerk's office, coordinate with Jim, and then head down at about 8:30 and cover the COA till 12:30. Those were the peak hours that the COA members were really hoping to get, someone physically there, like a friendly face to welcome people, and hopefully to get some more programming going. But we're still trying to gauge what people's interests are. With COVID, some people, we just don't know what the market is for programming. Like if we ran more programs, would people be comfortable showing up? It's not clear that they would. So the COA meeting that was scheduled for last Thursday was postponed. There were quorum issues, so that meeting is going to be held this Wednesday at 10 a.m. So I'll be part of that. But the feedback that I got from the members I met with a couple of weeks ago was very positive as to this idea.
COAs all meeting virtually, right?
They are. Yeah. So unless there's questions on that, the next item for update is on the wage classification study. I thought we might have a signed agreement in place by tonight. We don't. I did receive a proposal a few weeks ago, and I'm still reviewing that and have looking to set up a time with the prospective vendor this week, so we can just firm that up and make sure that's exactly what we need. But we're working to get a contract in place so we can, really start that and get that on everyone's radar in terms of like a schedule to get that work done. But that proposal was from the Collins Center out of UMass Boston. Next topic, the Page Pipe Save Main Street safety audit. We do have a signed contract. I included that in your packet along with just the markup that reflected, Wayne's and my input, as well as the discussion the board had a few weeks ago on this topic. If you can read his writing, I wanted you to see kind of that, the gist of what was changing from what was originally received to what we ultimately signed and agreed. So I think we're in great shape with this vendor. They're very, very highly qualified for this kind of work. And I think it's going to position us well for hopefully a Safe Routes to Schools grant next year.
That was a minor point on that. I was just curious, the end number was 25,750.
Mhm.
I didn't see how that final number was arrived. This was a clear, it's in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, no. So what happened was one of the things that we requested and we really felt was essential. The initial proposal had provided for one set of traffic counts, weekday traffic counts. And we felt it was really going to be important to have a weekend set of traffic counts as well. And so they said, that was going to add $1,500 to the scope. So we said, how about you split
the wire out there for 2 more days?
What?
You just leave the wire out there for 2
No, it's a because they're doing turning counts as well. It's actually someone sitting there and counting. Really? Yeah. Because they're doing turning counts as well. So it is, it definitely is a direct cost. There's no doubt. So we kind of thought they could probably absorb it. What we agreed was to meet in the middle. So if it was going to cost an extra $1,500, how about we pay half that and you guys kind of absorb half that? And they agreed to that. So
that's an easy answer. Thanks.
Yeah. So it's, our goal, I'm hoping that that Wayne and I can connect with them this week and set out, at least in broad strokes, a schedule for that work. It's got to be totally complete by the end of June. We'd like to get it done sooner than that. And, we'd like to get some dates pinned down so that we can get the word out and get that on people's calendars. Cause we know that, things get really, really busy after the first of the year with budget season and FinCom meetings and so forth. So, and there's a lot of people who are going to be really, really interested in being involved with this study. Next item, the paving update is just informational. So nothing really to say there. But they're doing a great job. Item Q, we include this every year right around this time. We, send around the annual report. A lot of data in there. Really Rick does the lion's share of that work, and we're very thankful to him for that. I'd included, just so you're aware, that we're kind of at the very, very early stages for this greenhouse gas inventory. And I think that's going to be, good to have that kickoff that I think we scheduled that. I can't exactly, but I think that I've got that on my calendar for next week, maybe. And then finally, we did go ahead and issue a RFP for surveyor for Cortlandt Lane for that end portion. If something, becomes available to us in the meantime that forestalls the need to expend public funds, that would be a huge plus. But we felt, in order to kind of keep moving forward, we felt it would be good to just issue the RFP and see if we can get some proposals from vendors.
So there was no response from the neighbors up there?
Not yet.
It was about a week ago or so that.
Yeah, I think right about a week ago.
Yeah.
So we should, by the next meeting, 2 weeks from tonight, I think that was the day that we set for proposals. So we won't have obviously vetted anyone or made any selection by that point, but I'll at least be able to tell you how many proposals we received, if any. I mean, I certainly hope we get some. I think we will. I mean, I think it should be pretty, pretty easy work for someone who's qualified to do it.
Yeah.
Any questions on any of those items?
No, that's all good. Thanks. It's only 10:30. Must be a way we could spend another half hour.
I did have an item under ask, future agenda items.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, the personnel committee, where we stand on that.
Yeah, that's a good, actually, Lark sent that, I think we're gonna take that up on the 20th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Lark had reached out to Angus and, yeah, but it's a good call on that.
I want to lose him.
Right, yeah. Yeah, there was enough on tonight's agenda.
There's an item, I know Angus, you had talked about the MVRTA.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we've got that on for the 20th. Yeah, we're going to talk again about level of service and, if we wanted to look at that, what's that process like? We do have a seat on the MVRTA board, which over the years the town hasn't participated. Jim made that connection and made me aware that we have a seat and we've now got a better dialogue. I had hoped to attend last week's meeting. I was not able to because of some other things, but Jim did go on the town's behalf. And so, 2 weeks from tonight, we'll include for discussion just generally the issue of transit, where we fit in the region, how that process works, what level of service we have, and if we did want to explore changes in level of service, what that would look like process-wise or cost-wise.
It was partly driven by request, an inquiry by Peter Leonard Solis, who was wondering about bus service and why is there not, what's the situation? Is it possible to add that any bus service in West Newbury?
We had them in
Yeah.
a few years ago. I mean, everything, it was probably more than a few, but we did have them in. It's like, could we even have a stop like right out here? And the bus goes on 110, it doesn't go on 113.
Yeah.
Well, why couldn't one?
Right.
But it just, they weren't interested.
Yeah. My guess is it won't be easy. Well, we'll learn what we learn, I guess. My guess is that it won't be early or easy, but you would think that there would be an alternate, besides the route that goes from Port Plaza up through Salisbury over to Amesbury. And then there's another route, I think it goes from Amesbury to Haverhill.
That's what, yeah.
But you would think that it would make sense to close the loop, to have
Come back this way.
or either have another bus that runs, from Newburyport, maybe a couple stops in Newburyport through West Newbury, Groveland.
Maybe, that's such a good idea. Maybe if we got Groveland to be interested in it simultaneously, it would have more impact.
Yeah. I would think there'd be an advantage for Haverhill. From an economic standpoint, some people then would go to Haverhill and spend their dollars in Haverhill.
according to the staff, this is the first time a West Newbury representative has ever gone to a board meeting.
Really?
So I think just by us being in the room
Yeah,
will be a helpful factor in what kind of services we get in the
yeah,
future.
that's great. Thanks for doing that. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. We've never played. And, you know,
It's not just us.
Yeah.
There are several towns in the MBRTA board that just don't show up because they don't see a reason.
yeah. I mean, I've thought about it a bunch of times over the years, you know, just wondered why isn't there a bus that comes through West
I'm
Newbury?
trying to think who, I think we had someone from NBRT. That, I'm just trying to think, who were we talking to that said we couldn't do it, but I think that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think we knew that at the time that we could actually have a representative that could go.
I mean, clearly it doesn't happen for free, so, but, you know, what does it take to make it happen? What does it cost? What are the funding sources, you know, besides fares, I mean, whatever, fares probably don't pay the full cost, but, you know, how do you fund things like that?
Well, the assessment is, each community is assessed, partly how close they are to the transportation that's provided, and if it goes through their town, they pay more. It's a complicated assessment. Like, we pay money to the MBTA, even though we're not. I think it comes up to the cherry sheet.
We're rail adjacent.
Yeah, because we're close to
Because
rail.
we're close enough to the railroad station, exactly.
We're actually close on both
Newburyport
sides.
and Haverhill.
Right, yeah.
But it's not that much, but we'll do that.
Well, it'll be interesting to explore that. Okay, I think we're done. Move to adjourn.
Second.
Favor? Aye.